Part 194. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1936. If that's the case, of course you can. Return Purgatory Mountain to me after 1,000 years. Zuyun chuckled and said, Zuyun, always think it through. But Brother Lin, don't you want to be the master of this mountain? How about I show you a clear path? What clear path? Lin Zhenghong said disdainfully, Boy Zuyun, although you are now an immortal lord, I think your knowledge is not broad enough. Zuyun smiled and shook his head, and then said, Brother, if you don't believe it, that's fine. But you will know when the time comes. Wait until I calm down the fairy world. That's fine, it's not that short of time anyway, Lin Zhenghong nodded and said, but I want to make it clear to you first. If I am not the mountain master, I will definitely tell the fairy master, otherwise I'm afraid that he will show up suddenly and not be able to find me, and I don't know how to explain it. Zuyun showed a meaningful smile, this is natural, I will definitely let you meet the immortal master. He was so sure that he guessed that the immortal lord would eventually emerge from the chaos. Therefore, he must go to the Chinese immortal realm as soon as possible. Qiu Linjian's attitude was not important to him. The important thing is that Zuyun wants to control Qiu Linjian and put it away. Finally, use this to threaten Ye Yang. In this way, the two of them can go to the Mayanbei fairy kingdom and wait for the immortal Lord Tongtian to come out of the chaos and catch him off guard. This is also the most perfect solution that Zuyun came up with after waiting here for 3 days. Okay, Lin Zhenghong nodded to the formation immortal and agreed, but then he suddenly remembered something and asked, Purgatory Mountain has become an eye of the formation. It will not affect the people of my Lin family. Bar. The formation immortal smiled and said, of course not, and Purgatory Mountain is still the original Purgatory Mountain, and people from the Lin family can come and go freely. The biggest difference is that within 1,000 years, Purgatory Mountain can only stay here and can no longer flying in the fairy world. It doesn't matter. Lin Zhenghong made a gesture of invitation. Zuyun suddenly interrupted and said, actually, you don't have to deal with evil immortals anymore, but you have to pay special attention to the passage of the demon world. Don't you have the divine eye technique? You can pay attention to the movements inside at any time. In case something changes in the demon world, it can be discovered early, right? Okay Zuyun, you have already plotted against me, haven't you? Zuyun smiled and said nothing. If he hadn't considered this, he himself was proficient in formations and could have set up a large formation here. However, it is easy to find a formation, but there is no one as suitable as Purgatory Mountain. Not to mention, there are countless immortals on Purgatory Mountain. They were originally righteous people who specialized in dealing with evil immortals. Now it is most appropriate to turn around and guard the passage to the demon world. In addition, there is normal fire in Purgatory Mountain, and it can also harm the demons. Zuyun took Mengwei aside and left the rest to the formation immortal to handle. Zuyun, is there no problem with this? She asked softly. Zuyun knew what she meant and said with a smile, Lin Zhenghong is a bit stubborn and doesn't know anything about other things in the fairy world. Plus, he returned to the fairy world not long ago and can be fooled. Besides, Lin Zhenghong is using Lin Fei's body now. Come to think of it, immortal Lord Tongtian will definitely give him a surprise when the time comes. Mengwei thought for a moment and said, then how do you plan to control Qiu Linjian? Zuyun smiled mysteriously and patted his chest. Luli mirror. Mengwei was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, I don't think the glass mirror is very good. The cosmic glazed mirror was originally Nangong Tianli's natal fairy weapon. Of course she understood. It might be difficult to deal with an immortal king like Qiu Linjian. Zuyun said from the passage, will I do that uncertain thing? With the completion of Liuli Chaos, Zuyun also discovered something extremely mysterious. It was his earliest guess that the opposite side of the glazed immortal mirror actually leads directly to the chaos of the glazed immortal mirror. As for the front, he also had a guess. The front should be able to control the flow of time in Liulai Ferry. However, Zuyun did not try. Because there is something he doesn't understand. For example, using the glazed fairy mirror to directly accelerate time in the fairy world makes the fairy world more powerful and feeds him back. He felt that there must be something unreasonable in this. He didn't dare to try because he was afraid that something would go wrong and it would be self-defeating. But now, it can be used, and his immortal soul can feel it clearly. I don't know if immortal Lord Tongtian has similar means. Zuyun also said secretly. I have been waiting here for several days again. The formation immortal walked over with a tired look on his face. It's done, Zuyun, are you in a hurry? If you're not in a hurry, how many days will you have to wait at Purgatory Mountain? Originally, they had made an appointment to go to the Chinese fairyland together. The formation immortal was afraid that Zuyun wouldn't be able to wait any longer. I'm not in a hurry, but... He thought for a moment and said, if you are in a hurry to recover and come with me, I'm afraid it won't be convenient. How about you recover here first and then come over with Brother Lin? As he spoke, he took out a piece of immortal sound transmission talisman and said, when the time comes, you can just send a message. That's fine, Xianxia nodded and said, actually, I haven't fully adapted to this body. Zuyun, after you go, you have to be careful. If you are not sure about anything, let us know first. When the time comes, wait for us to pass. Zuyun smiled, and after making sure that the Purgatory Mountain was firmly blocking the passage to the demon realm, he took Mengwei and said goodbye to the two. After flying for a long time, they returned to the formation wall between the southern fairyland and the central fairyland. But at this time, Zuyun had completely changed in both realm and state of mind. Zuyun did not even have the divine eye technique, but he saw through the formation pattern of the formation and easily slipped in without alarming anyone. Mengwei was almost there, but it was not difficult for her. Only a flash of red light from the demon eye also saw the flaw. Zuyun, go directly to their immortal emperor realm. The two were very skilled and bold. Zuyun annexed the entire Chaos Star Sea. With the help of all the demon lords of the ancient demon clan, the three-eyed demon clan, the soul-devouring demon clan and the holy demon clan, the glazed fairyland quickly settled down. Especially Yanzai and Shi Wuyan, in addition to appeasing them, they also promoted Zuyun and asked them to follow the example of the soul-devouring demon star and the three-eyed demon star, and to establish Zuyun's golden body in each demon city, and let them call him the immortal lord. Zuyun had secretly taken a look, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But it must be said that this is a good thing for him. It is the confidence that he dared to come here alone with Mengwei. Mengwei used the magic knife to pass through the channel of the demon world and killed the nightmare demon king. At this time, his morale was also high. Go directly to the immortal emperor realm and meet Qiu Linjian. Now that we all have the power of the immortal lord, I want to see what conspiracy she can play. Anyway, marry a chicken and follow the chicken, marry a dog and follow the dog. Wherever you go, I will go there. Mengwei smiled, as if she didn't know that the next meeting with Qiu Linjian would be her most dangerous encounter so far. Zuyun nodded and said softly, Wu Ya, I will trap her in the glazed chaos, and I will send you in together. You must be careful not to let her leave the glazed chaos. Don't worry, Mengwei nodded and said, my magic knife is not a vegetarian either. The two smiled at each other, and then flew straight to the central immortal emperor realm. Warm Ti. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1937. Brother Yang, you've slept long enough, it's time to wake up, right? Qiu Linjian sat on the edge of the bed, and a touch of immortal power passed over his hand, caressing Ye Yang's cheek. Ye Yang's eyelids trembled but did not open in the end. "Brother Yang," Qiu Linjian suddenly smiled and said, "Stop pretending, I always knew you were not asleep." Hearing this, Ye Yangke suddenly opened his eyes and asked doubtfully, "Yan'er, how did you know?" Qiu Linjian smiled tenderly and said, "You picked me up on Blue Star, but you always thought that I opened my spiritual wisdom after following you to the Tongtian immortal realm, right?" Ye Yang was stunned for a moment, then understood. At first, he picked up Qiu Linjian as a stray mini pet dog and raised him at home. But he never knew that Qiu Linjian was actually a fox. "So, you knew the difference between my real sleep and my fake sleep before." After arriving in the immortal realm, Ye Yang also inexplicably possessed the strength of the immortal lord, and after some training, he finally became the Chinese immortal emperor. As for Qiu Linjian, it was also because of this Fang immortal way that he cultivated to adulthood and finally became the demon immortal lord. Of course, Qiu Linjian smiled sweetly, her chest trembling with laughter, and she was so charming and caressing. It's a pity that Ye Yang only regrets at this time. "I regret that I couldn't hold it back at that time. I just blame myself for being too weak back then. How can I tolerate a girl with animal ears hanging from a big fluffy tail?" He came back to his senses and said, "You don't want to come back to Blue Star with me because you're afraid that Blue Star doesn't have the way to make people grow up, and you'll turn into a fox again, right?" With just a little thought, Ye Yang can think of everything. "Yes," Qiu Linjian nodded and said, "What's wrong with this fairy world? If we live forever, we can stay together forever." Ye Yang smiled bitterly, looked at the ceiling, and said, "But, I'm a little tired of living. I feel like there is nothing left to pursue in this fairy world." Qiu Linjian shook his head and said, "Brother Yang, we can go up further." "You mean above the fairy world?" Ye Yang asked, then smiled, and said, "What we have now is just good luck, and we are not restricted by the way of heaven. But we can go up, if it is the God realm above, then we and the monks who first ascended to the immortal realm, what's the difference? They're just ants." "Brother Yang," Qiu Linjian said, "but now that I'm back to Blue Star, what will you do to me if I turn back into a fox?" "I won't mention it for now, but what about my longevity?" Yes, it's not that I don't want to go back to Blue Star, it's not that I want to go back to the way things were in the past." Ye Yang asked, "Then why do you want to turn the fairy world into a fairy world?" Qiu Linjian's eyes widened, her beautiful eyes were full of disbelief, and she said, "You also know this?" "Nonsense," Ye Yang said angrily, "as soon as you raise your butt, I'll know what's going on in your mind." He sat up cross-legged and said, "How about this? You continue to stay here and I'll go back to Blue Star." "Impossible," Qiu Linjian shook his head repeatedly, "I can't live without you. Wherever you are, I will be. But you won't go to Blue Star with me. When we go to Blue Star, we will be different." The two seemed to be arguing, but their tone was calm and there was no intention of arguing at all. Outside this room, a sneaky figure stood there blankly. He heard these words and seemed to understand them. His father and mother are not from this world of immortals. But when he thought of Lu Ruyan being killed by Qiu Linjian, Ye Yuan rushed in regardless of anything else. "Mom! Why do you want to kill Lu Ruyan?" Upon hearing Ye Yuan's question, Qiu Linjian smiled and danced casually. The next moment, Ye Yuan passed out. How could he be the opponent of an immortal king? Even if this person is her biological mother. "Look at your son, he is so stupid. What will he do if you leave?" Qiu Linjian looked at Ye Yang with a half smile. "He is not very smart," Ye Yang shook his head and sighed, "but I have arranged everything. Children and grandchildren will have their own blessings, but it is a pity that Huang Mingxin was ruined in the end. If the yellow star is ruined, what's the pity?" Qiu Linjian was stunned for a moment. Huang Xing, I plan to leave it to him. Ye Yang looked over with a complicated expression. Qiu Linjian didn't believe it. Did you leave it to Huang Mingxing? Not what you prepared for returning to Blue Star. I don't need anything when I go back to Blue Star, Ye Yang sneered and said, this immortal way cannot imprison me, I just have the Chaos Hammer. The Chaos Hammer is not. Qiu Linjian said in shock. You want to say it was hidden by you, right? Ye Yang sat up, a confident smile flashed across his face. The Chaos Hammer you hid is not a Chaos Hammer. But I am the Chaos Hammer, and the Chaos Hammer is me. Ye Yang's words were shocking, and his body was suddenly filled with endless aura. Qiu Linjian took a few steps back, but Ye Yang suddenly took back the aura. You really don't want to come back to Blue Star with me? Seeing Qiu Linjian's face full of horror, Ye Yang suddenly regained his momentum, with a look of doting in his eyes. When he first arrived in the fairy world, he and Qiu Linjian depended on each other. In a strange world, without Qiu Linjian's help, and with all his immortal power and realm, he didn't know what to do. If it weren't for Qiu Linjian, I'm afraid he would have died long ago. I won't go back. Qiu Linjian shook his head resolutely. Then I'll continue sleeping. Ye Yang lay back and closed his eyes. He didn't even look at Ye Yuan on the ground. Qiu Linjian couldn't speak for a long time. At the same time, Zhu Yun also came here. He didn't restrain his breath at all, and directly scanned with his immortal sense, and quickly found a familiar breath. Qiu Linjian's. He looked over and found the central imperial palace. Qiu Linjian's breath came from the main hall in the imperial palace. Wu ya, over there. Zhu Yun said easily, but his heart was lifted. Well, let's go together. Meng Wu Ye responded softly, put his hand into his sleeves, and tightly grasped the immortal demon sword. Zhu Yun's immortal king's power, in the immortal emperor realm, no one dared to come forward to stop him. He landed easily. Looking at the palace gate, the array pattern flowed. Zhu Yun just chuckled and controlled the divine eye technique. He saw Qiu Linjian and Ye Yang. He also saw Ye Yuan lying on the ground. What is this family going to do? Zhu Yun narrowed his eyes, but the array pattern in front of him suddenly lit up, and then Qiu Linjian walked out of it. Zhu Yun's expression tightened, but he heard Qiu Linjian say, Zhu Yun, let's make a deal. Zhu Yun asked in a serious tone, what deal? You become the immortal master of the Tongtian immortal realm, and then help me and brother Yang go to the upper world together, how about that? The upper world. Zhu Yun frowned, can you go to the upper world? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1938. There must be an upper world, immortal Lord Tongtian once said. There are two messages in Qiu Linjian's words. One is the literal meaning, there is another world above the fairy world. Secondly, Qiu Linjian also met immortal Lord Tongtian. She was even present when Ye Yang hammered immortal Lord Tongtian into chaos. Zhu Yun asked, will he be willing to let me be the immortal Lord Tongtian immortal Lord? Even if he refuses, what can he do? Qiu Linjian chuckled and said, Zhu Yun, do you know what the destiny of the destiny is? When she first met Qiu Linjian, she mentioned this issue, but stopped the topic and did not tell Zhu Yun. When it was mentioned again at this time, Zhu Yun naturally asked, what is it? Every destined person can be an immortal master. In other words, a destined person's destiny is to become the new immortal master. Zhu Yundao said, what you mean is that not everyone can be an immortal lord. Only those with destiny can be qualified to compete for the immortal lord. Is that so? That's right, Qiu Linjian nodded and said, anyone can sit as the immortal emperor, as long as he occupies one side of the immortal territory, Brother Yang is like this, forcibly demarcating 4 areas from the 4 directions of the immortal territory, even became the Chinese immortal realm. But the immortal master cannot. In the immortal realm, one needs to be recognized by the immortal realm in order to control the immortal way, not to determine the immortal way. Zhu Yun could understand this, just like he did in the Liulai immortal world. He can't change the rules of immortality, but he can use the rules inside. These words made Zhu Yunruo realize something, but in Qiu Linjian's view, he thought it was Zhu Yun's heart that was moved. She stopped talking, but looked at Zhu Yun quietly, until Zhu Yun raised his head and said, "My words are not without purpose. I don't know if you know the real reason why the immortal master disappeared." Of course Zhu Yun knew, but he still pretended not to know and shook his head. The immortal Lord Tongtian was injured by Brother Yang and was thrown into chaos. The existence of the Mayan Bay immortal kingdom started from that time. The Mayan Bay fairy kingdom was originally just an ordinary place in the fairy world, but because of a gap in the chaos, the pure power of chaos poured out, and then turned into fairy snow, so it got this name. But Zhu Yun thought of another question. Mayan Bay fairy kingdom has existed for a long time, and its location has always been around the borders of several major fairy lands. Does that mean that chaos is actually moving? Or does chaos originally belong to another dimension? So, it is impossible for immortal Lord Tongtian to appear in the immortal world, and it is also the best time for you to become an immortal lord. As for the other immortal emperors who want to be immortal lords, I have already found out, except for the dead Bei apart from Mingyun and Nangang Tianli, neither Ximen Yuanqing nor Dongfang Bai is destined, so no one can compete with you. You even know that Bei Minjiun is dead. Zhu Yun was stunned. Bei Minjiun was still a knot in his heart. However, after the fairy world is calmed down, he will try to resurrect Bei Minjiun no matter what. As for Nangang Tianli, who was also a destined person, Zhu Yun was very surprised. But it doesn't matter anymore. Nangang Tianli could not die anymore, the Nangang Nightmare clan was also wiped out, and the passage to the devil world was sealed. Moreover, Meng Hui also said that the demon clan would be destroyed in a short time. Zhu Yun, how about this deal? Seeing Zhu Yun thinking non-stop, Qiu Linjian seemed to believe that Zhu Yun was moved, and the smile on his face became even bigger. Not much. Zhu Yun shook his head and said, "I want to see Ye Yang." Brother Yang is unconscious. Qiu Linjian looked back and said, "So this Chinese immortal realm, and even the entire immortal realm, are all decided by me. Even if you are now in the immortal lord realm, and Meng Hui this holy demon lord, so what? I have been planning this for hundreds of thousands of years, how can I let you succeed?" After saying that, Qiu Linjian's expression condensed, revealing his evil purpose. "Qiu Linjian, do you just want to fight me?" Zhu Yun tilted his head. To be honest, he was not afraid of Qiu Linjian at all. The only worry is that I can't restrain myself and kill Qiu Linjian. Then Ye Yang will cause trouble for him. Of course, Zhu Yun is also extremely confident now. He is not even afraid of Ye Yang. Ye Yang is not restricted by this immortal way, and he is also not restricted. It's just that Zhu Yun is worried about immortal Lord Tongtian. It's not cost-effective to be Ye Yang's enemy. "Zhu Yun," Qiu Linjian said lightly, "I don't want my plan to be ruined. Of course, if I leave the fairy world and go to the upper world, then naturally no one in this fairy world can stop you. You are very suitable to be the immortal lord of the Tongtian immortal realm." Zhu Yun was non-committal, and indeed, he also found that he could convince others by doing whatever he wanted. Just like those evil immortals, they were very inexplicable. They no longer brought trouble to the southern immortal realm. Not only did they kill all the Nangang Nightmare tribe, but they also went to the Demon Realm passage at the critical moment and worked hard to seal the Demon Realm passage. On the way here, Meng Hui told Zhu Yun everything that happened at that time. It can be said that it was extremely tragic at the time. The side of the evil immortal suffered the most casualties. Xianxia, I don't believe you because you can even lie to your own son, let alone me, an outsider. Zuyun pursed his lips toward the room behind her, but in fact, what Zuyun cared more about was the speculation in his heart. Xianxia wants to turn the Tongtian immortal realm into the demonic immortal realm. But what he said to himself was that he wanted to be the immortal master and he wanted to go to the upper world. Contrary to what Ye Yang said. Naturally, one of the two couples lied. Zuyun felt that Xianxia was lying to him. How do I teach my son? You, an outsider, can't control it. When he mentioned Ye Yuan, Xianxia's expression suddenly changed, and then he said, if Ye Yuan is just playing around with Lu Ruyan, of course I don't care. How can Xianxia's son just find a human race, or a human race from the lower realm? Zuyun was greatly surprised and said, Ye Yang doesn't mind that you are a demon clan, but you actually interfere in your son's choice of an immortal couple. Zuyun never had other thoughts because Menghui was a demon. On the contrary, everything Zuyun is doing now is ultimately to stay with Menghui forever without being disturbed by anyone. It's not your turn to deal with my Xianxian matter. Xianxian's expression suddenly changed, and then, a series of immortal power laws appeared in her hands, revealing a seductive aura. Zuyun, I will give you one last chance. Do you agree or not? Zuyun shook his head and said calmly, if you want to fight, I will fight with you. Do you know why I haven't taken action yet? Xianxian sneered, why, you still don't take action because of Ye Yang's face. Zuyun took out the glazed fairy mirror lightly, pointed the back at Xianxian, and asked, what do you think? As the words fell, the power of space law surged over the fairy mirror, forming a strong suction force. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1939. The mere laws of space cannot control me. Fairy tale. Seeing Zuyun take action, Xianxian gave a sweet shout. In an instant, Xianxia, dressed in white, turned around and turned behind her, forming 9 foxtails. Every foxtail is glowing with demonic light, and coincides with the 9 palaces avenue. 9 is the supreme yang. If you cultivate it to the extreme, it may not be weaker than the laws of space. Zuyun, my injury was caused by myself, and it only takes a moment to recover. If you want to hurt me based on the laws of space, you are wishful thinking. Xianxian spread out his 9 foxtails, and the power of law came toward Zuyun. Wia! Zuyun called out softly and at the same time activated the divine eye technique. There are no flaws in this 9 palaces demon power. Zuyun needs Menghui's help. Magic knife, holy magic eye. Menghui had already been prepared. As a dark red light appeared in her eyes, the magic sword also gushed out with extremely mysterious magic power. The black demonic energy and the gray-white chaotic fairy power turned the magic knife into a fairy weapon like the law of yin and yang. Lianji Avenue. There is no high or low Tao, it's just who understands Tao better. After Menghui became the demon immortal, he had complete control over the yin and yang avenue. As for the magic knife, the yin and yang chaotic circle at the handle is the law of the immortal world and the way of immortality. The demonic sword has absorbed the purest demonic energy from the sea of saints and demons as well as the demon world, so it is naturally a demon. Immortals can be enlightened and demons can be enlightened. The demon sword is the supreme immortal demon sword. The immortal demonic sword suddenly grew longer, Menghui's red lips slightly opened, and he spat out a word. Cut. The magic knife then slashed down, slashing towards the 9 foxtails. You are a demon, why do you know the laws of the fairy world? Xianxian was horrified when he felt that his 9 palace foxtail might be cut off. She originally thought that Zuyun came with Menghui just as a companion. But I didn't expect that Menghui's strength would be so powerful. With this sword slash, she saw that Menghui was not restricted by the immortal Dao of heaven at all. This could use both her natal magic power and the magical power of chaos. It was unbelievable and completely beyond her scope of understanding. There is no reason, Zuyun took the opportunity to increase his immortal power, and the suction force on the glazed fairy mirror became even stronger. If Qiulinjian hides from Menghui's magic knife, then she will be sucked into the glazed fairy mirror. If she didn't hide, Menghui wouldn't be polite and would cut off her foxtail. The nine-tailed demon fox is stronger than the foxtail, and Qiulinjian is no exception. As for whether Ye Yang would get into trouble because of this, Zuyun had already taken care of so much. It was impossible that he would be killed by Qiulinjian, right? Therefore, Zuyun only used the laws of space and not the laws of time and space. In fact, he was secretly paying attention to Ye Yang. Shen Jingzhe could see that Ye Yang's eyes were narrowed to a slit, obviously observing the outside. But he didn't know that Ye Yang was no longer pretending to sleep in front of Qiulinjian. It's not that easy to cut off my tail. Qiulinjian gritted his teeth and roared. He did not dodge, but suddenly put away his foxtail, and the strong suction force immediately sucked her in. Just when he was about to enter the glazed fairy mirror, Qiulinjian suddenly exploded 9 foxtails like a peacock spreading its wings, and was about to use the tail as a hand to snatch the glazed mirror from Zuyun's hand. Snort. Zuyun snorted lightly and exerted force on his hands. Immediately afterwards, Menghui's magic knife quickly turned in another direction and continued to slash. Zuyun is arrogant. Qiulinjian turned around and turned out to be extremely powerful. She forcefully snatched the glazed artifact from Zuyun's hand. At the same time, she opened her mouth and spit out a strange red bead. Demon fire, Qinmen. On top of the demon fire, the aura of phoenix fire was faintly revealed. Zuyun secretly thought it was bad. This is. In an instant, the demonic fire formed a fire gate out of thin air, and then, the Phoenix clan sycamore flew out of it. Qiniang. Zuyun and Menghui both changed their expressions. They all guessed that Qiulinjian used Sun Qiniang as a chess piece, but they never thought that she would use the secret chess piece on such an occasion. A flaming sword energy floated above the sycamore trees, and a fire phoenix suddenly appeared. Immediately afterwards, Sun Qiniang turned into tears. The posture is exactly the same as what he saw at the entrance to the demon realm. Qiulinjian, you said you wouldn't let me hurt Zuyun. Sun Qiniang gritted her teeth and did not dare to look directly at Zuyun and Menghui. I didn't let you hurt Zuyun, Qiulinjian said solemnly, go deal with that witch. This witch naturally refers to Menghui. No, I won't hurt Hui either. Sun Qiniang was a little hysterical, and Zuyun also stared blankly, completely forgetting to take back his glazed fairy mirror. Menghui also felt disappointed. In her memory, the hundreds of years of battle with Jian Tianming in the lower realm also appeared. But who would have thought that he had merged with Nu Qiao, and Sun Qiniang had merged with Jian Tianming? This will eventually happen. Qiulinjian said, Sun Qiniang, that is not part of our agreement. As she spoke, she used her demonic power. After the glazed fairy mirror was out of Zuyun's control, the suction power seemed to be less strong, and it became much easier for her to hold it on. As long as Sun Qiniang deals with Menghui, she can solve the danger of the magic sword and concentrate on dealing with Zuyun. Since Zuyun can't be used by him, it's just a little troublesome at worst. I won't hurt Hui. Sun Qiniang shook her head vigorously, and the tears that fell were burned into white smoke by her own phoenix fire. Qiniang, I don't want to hurt you either, Menghui said with a sense of loss, but now, it seems that there is no choice. She regarded Sun Qiniang as a close friend, and she would even lose her life for her. However, Menghui knew that Zuyun was everything to her. Even Sun Qiniang couldn't compare to her. Because people are selfish. Hui, I know everything. Sun Qinyang stopped shaking her head. Meng Wei seemed to have said nothing, but he told her the truth. Maybe, there was Jian Tianming's memory at work. Maybe, there were other things. Of course, Qiu Linjian might have done something to Sun Qinyang in secret. But Meng Wei believed it more. Sun Qinyang had the same idea as himself. For Zhu Yun to live, Meng Wei's death was no longer so important. Sun Qinyang and Qiu Linjian had an agreement that if she did one last thing for her, they would be even. So Sun Qinyang decided. After killing Meng Wei, she would turn around and deal with Qiu Linjian. But she couldn't say this, she believed that Meng Wei would understand. Otherwise, Meng Wei would not remind herself. Because Meng Wei would also join forces with Zhu Yun to deal with Qiu Linjian again after killing her. After hundreds of years of fighting, I didn't expect it to end up like this. Sun Qinyang's expression was condensed, but her eyes were slightly tearful, proving that she had just experienced heartbroken crying. Meng Wei sighed slightly. Their ultimate goal was the same. However, this battle was unavoidable. Let's fight quickly and decisively. Sun Qinyang and Meng Wei said in unison, which immediately made Qiu Linjian realize that something was wrong. And Zhu Yun also suddenly discovered something, and his face changed drastically. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1940. Meng Wei has nothing to do with Tongtian Immortal Wei. The Phoenix clan was also brought into the Tongtian Immortal realm by Ye Yang. Now that Sun Qinyang is the Phoenix Queen, she may naturally be like Meng Wei. That is to say, no matter who dies, there is a high possibility that Zhu Yun will not be able to resurrect them from the long river of time and space. Must die? No, you don't want it? Zhu Yun's eyes were about to burst, and he quickly flew over to stop him. But Sun Qinyang and Meng Wei ignored it at all and flew out of the northern immortal emperor realm in perfect agreement. Zhu Yun wanted to chase, but Qiu Linjian giggled and stopped Zhu Yun. At the same time, he stretched out his hands into claws and kept grabbing at Zhu Yun. Qiu Linjian, do you really think that I dare not kill you? It concerns Meng Wei and Sun Qinyang, what will happen to Ye Yang, so what? Kikik. Qiu Linjian smiled and suddenly said in a fierce voice, Zhu Yun, whoever dares to stop me and destroy my road will be killed by me. Who do I care who you are? If that's the case, then I will kill you. Zhu Yun roared angrily, and there was a lot of black energy in his eyes. He had never become a demon in his whole life of cultivation, but at this moment, he seemed to have become a demon. Qiu Linjian's heart skipped a beat, and before he could react, he saw Zhu Yun reaching out for a knife and slashing directly at his hand. Click. Qiu Linjian didn't react in time at all. He retracted his hand, but Zhu Yun cut it off directly. At this moment, he used the Wuji sword technique, the immortal law under the heaven-reaching immortal way, to point directly at the weak point. He slashed it with all his strength. Who could hide? Zhu Yun boy. Inside the room, Ye Yang's violent shouts could be heard, and a sledgehammer suddenly flew out. Ye Yang. Zhu Yun turned his palm into a fist and blasted out. Chaos Immortal Fist. It is not a Chaos Fist, nor is it a Chaos Fist created by the five elements Xianxia who uses immortal power to control it. This is Zhu Yun mobilizing the chaotic power in the Liulai Immortal realm. It is a punch on the same level as Tongtian Immortal Dao. Boom. There was a loud noise, and the imperial palace was instantly destroyed into ashes. But the hammer and Zhu Yun did not move, sticking tightly together. Yan'er, forget it. Ye Yang was also full of disbelief. Taking advantage of the fact that he and Zhu Yun were temporarily indistinguishable, he quickly turned around to remind Qiu Linjian. Ye Yang, stop pretending to be a good person. Zhu Yun roared angrily, but a strange smile appeared on his lips. Seal up. After saying that, he freed up his other hand and drew an immortal talisman. The Lin family's heavenly talisman. Zhu Yun, the methods here are useless to me. Ye Yang shook his head. To be honest, he didn't want to be Zhu Yun's enemy. The seal took shape, wrapped around Ye Yang, but suddenly disappeared. Zhu Yun turned a blind eye, changed his gesture again, pointed his 5 fingers upward, and drank in a low voice. 5 elements trap spirit formation. He hasn't used this formation for a long time. The last time it was used was in the demon refining tower in the Ascension secret realm, in order to prevent the monks from entering the 9th floor of the demon refining tower. But after becoming an immortal, Zhu Yun has perfected the 5 elements law, so he can naturally set up formations at will. 5 fingers, each holding a law. 5 rays of light, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, appeared from his fingers. The entanglement back and forth trapped the 3 of them in an instant. The sky-reaching light pillar in the middle is constantly changing. But Ye Yang shook his head again. Zhu Yun, I have no spiritual roots. Your 5 elements trap spirit array cannot trap me. Then he glanced at Qiu Linjian again and said, Yan'er is a demon cultivator, and she has no spiritual roots. Zhu Yun was unmoved and murmured, every tree, monster, or stone can become an immortal. I have no spiritual roots, so why not? Ye Yang, these are the 16 words you left in the lower world. That's right, what do you have to say? Ye Yang was stunned for a moment. Every plant, tree, monster, or stone can become an immortal. If you can become an immortal, then I can trap you. After saying that, Zhu Yun's open palm suddenly clenched into fists. In an instant, the 5-color brilliance turned into gray and white. The law of chaos. Ye Yang's face suddenly changed, and then he heard Zhu Yun say again, everything can be transformed into chaos, and chaos can be transformed into all things. Ye Yang, you are an immortal, so naturally you cannot escape from the avenue of chaos. You said you want to return to Blue Star. If my guess is correct, you haven't comprehended the avenue of chaos, right? With a sarcastic look on his face, Zhu Yun uttered another sentence. I realized it. As soon as the words fell, Zhu Yun's figure disappeared from the spot. The next moment, he appeared in front of Qiu Linjian, with his fist raised in his hand, and he blasted towards Qiu Linjian's face. Zhu Yun, no. Ye Yang's expression changed drastically. Zhu Yun's strength has exceeded his understanding. He came from Blue Star and became an immortal king. But later, after driving the Tongtian immortal lord into chaos, he shocked the immortal realm in all directions and forcibly carved out the immortal realm, turning himself from the immortal king to the Chinese immortal emperor. And he had no fighting experience anymore. At most, it was the incarnation of that year and entered the yellow star. But even so, he only has a hammer, and he claims to have become the hammer immortal. But Zhu Yun was completely different. He fought all the way here, and his state of mind was transcendent, which was definitely not comparable to other immortal kings. Because he has never had an easy life. Not to mention, at this moment, he was filled with anger and a sense of absolute despair. If you want to kill Qiu Linjian, no one can stop him. It was also at this moment that Ye Yang knew the consequences of angering Zhu Yun. He always thought that Zhu Yun was actually an honest person. Damn it, give me some face. Ye Yang transformed into a hammer and suddenly stood in front of Zhu Yun. Boom. With a loud noise, the 5 elements trapped spirit array transformed into a chaos trapped spirit array, but there was no change at all. Zhu Yun's fist hit Ye Yang, who turned into a hammer hard. What is face? Zhu Yun sneered and punched out again. What about Ye Yang? What about the immortal lord? Immortal emperor? So what? Zhu Yun was not afraid and punched Ye Yang one after another. Ye Yang was miserable. Qiu Linjian cut off one of his hands, and the 9 foxtails formed a tense situation with the glazed fairyland. Like a living target. Yan'er, let go quickly, Let Sun Qiniang and Meng Wei stop fighting. While Ye Yong was leaning against Zhu Yun's fist, he turned to Qiu Linjian and begged. No. I don't want. Qiu Linjian gritted his teeth and rejected Ye Yong. If this continues, I will be beaten to death. Ye Yong was extremely helpless. If you die, then I will die. Qiu Linjian's words stunned Zhu Yun. Something seemed to be touched in his heart. But the inner demons gradually eroded his heart, so he didn't think much. He gathered a punch and hit Ye Yong again. Aren't you reluctant to die? Why do you seek death after I die? Ye Yong continued to ask, not caring about Zhu Yun. He tried his best to return to Blue Star and become an ordinary person. And Qiu Linjian not only wants to live forever, but also wants to pursue a higher level of avenue. This is the conflict between them. But if the relationship between one person and one fox was so fragile, it would have broken up long ago. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1941. Zhu Yun suddenly had a thought in his mind. What would happen if this happened to him and Meng Wei? Will it be like Ye Yong and Qiu Linjian? To use an inappropriate metaphor, it means they are different and do not work together. Ye Yong wants to return to Blue Star. Why doesn't Qiu Linjian want to return to Blue Star? Is it really what he said? What would happen if Wei and I also had a dispute? Gradually, the movements of Zhu Yun's hands slowed down. The fist that struck Ye Yong also became much lighter. Zhu Yun. Ye Yong also suddenly felt it, and turned to look at Zhu Yun with doubts on his face. And this call quickly brought Zhu Yun back to his senses. Inner demons. It also recedes. To untie the bell, you still need the person who tied it. Ye Yong, you have to sit down with Qiu Linjian and discuss it carefully. Zhu Yun stopped his fist and said to Ye Yong. If it could be explained so easily, I wouldn't have been pretending to be asleep for so many years. Listening to Ye Yong's helpless words, Zhu Yun thought for a moment and then asked, why do you want to return to Blue Star? Do you really not want to go to the upper realm with Qiu Linjian? I told you, Ye Yong sighed and said, in my previous life, I was just an otaku. Well, do you know what an otaku is? Zhu Yun shook his head. It should be Blue Star's exclusive word. It means that I am an ordinary person in Blue Star. Well, timid and afraid of trouble, so I stayed at home. Then I picked her up and kept her as my companion. Of course, I also raised a Dragon King and a Phoenix King, but before they are not, forget it, let's not talk about this. In short, as I told you, I have no experience in cultivation, and I am afraid that I will die after going up. You remember you said that if you go back to Blue Star, you will die, so why not stay in Tongtian Immortal Realm? At least here, you can still live. Zhu Yun smiled and felt that he had found the problem. Ye Yong looked into the distance and said, but Immortal Lord Tongtian is not dead. When he comes out, I probably won't be able to defeat him. We are very particular about falling leaves returning to their roots. We are going to die anyway, so I will definitely die on Blue Star. Zhu Yun was speechless, and after a while he said, you can't beat Immortal Lord Tongtian. Nonsense, Ye Yong said angrily, I didn't practice sneak attacks at that time, and Immortal Master Tongtian didn't understand me, so I hammered him away. Now, I already feel that he is coming back soon. Zhu Yun learned some information from Xian Wuzong and said, indeed, Immortal Lord Tongtian has been trying to find a way to get out of the chaos. Zhu Yun, I don't have much experience, so I tried to go to Huangxingxing and let my clone go for a walk, but in the end, it was of no use. Only at this moment did Zhu Yun feel that Ye Yong's temperament. There is actually some weakness. So, do you have a way to get back to Blue Star? Zhu Yun asked, but did not give Ye Yong time to answer, and said directly, "Stay here, you can fight for your life with me. Immortal Lord Tongtian also wants to kill me, we can join forces and kill him. In this way, you may be able to continue practicing as an immortal master, and then when you are ready, you can explore the way to the upper world with Qiu Linjian. Tongtian Immortal Lord is very strong." Ye Yong only said 6 words. Zhu Yun chuckled lightly and said, "I have a way out, do you dare to have a big fight with me?" No matter what, Ye Yong has proven that he can hurt the immortal Lord Tongtian. So, this is his help. Zhu Yun came to the Chinese immortal realm for the same purpose. It's just that the truth of the matter is like this, which he never expected. But does it matter? It doesn't matter anymore. Ye Yong didn't reply, but Zhu Yun looked at Qiu Linjian and said, "I think you should sit down and have a frank and open-hearted talk. After hundreds of thousands of years, is there anything else you can say? Think more about each other, and you may be able to find a suitable solution." What Zhu Yun never expected was that he would end up working as a lobbyist here. I felt extremely helpless in my heart. However, he has also become a substitute for himself and Meng Wei, so basically this problem will not happen. Because they will consider each other the first time. Ye Yong and Qiu Linjian are completely opposite. "Yan'er, I think Zhu Yun is right. How about we go in and talk? You can return this fairy mirror to Zhu Yun." Ye Yong seemed to have gained courage and said to Qiu Linjian, "If you no longer insist on going back to Blue Star, even if we die in the immortal world, so what?" Qiu Linjian's face was filled with tears. Not far away, Sun Qiniang and Meng Wei also stopped their hands and stood side by side, looking at this side. Qiu Linjian put away his foxtail and threw the glazed fairy mirror back to Zhu Yun. "Well, let's talk about it first." Ye Yong scratched his head, perhaps not used to Qiu Linjian being like this. It can only be said that a country is easy to change, but its nature is hard to change. Maybe the otakus on Blue Star have this kind of temperament. The imperial palace was destroyed and they had nowhere to go. Qiu Linjian simply rolled up Ye Yong with his foxtail and flew away. Naturally, no one was approaching the movement here. Even if it stopped, no immortal Luo Tian would come over. Wei, Qiniang. Zhu Yun watched them go away, and finally looked at Meng Wei and Sun Qiniang. He breathed a sigh of relief. "I really don't want to see these two people fighting life and death. I'm going back too." Sun Qiniang lowered her head. She didn't dare look directly into Zhu Yun's eyes. Her body was gradually filled with phoenix fire and sword power. "Qiniang, I don't blame you." Zhu Yun and Meng Wei spoke almost at the same time. Sun Qiniang was shocked and raised her head, but she was already in tears. "Zhu Yun, I almost killed your father back then, and now I almost killed Wei. I don't have the face to see you anymore. Let me stay in this Phoenix clan and be the Phoenix Queen of the Phoenix clan." Zhu Yun smiled bitterly and said, "Qiniang, I know you have no choice, you really don't have to worry too much. As long as Ye Yong and Qiu Linjian's problems are resolved, we will just pretend that nothing happened, isn't it good?" Meng Wei also said, "Yes, Qiniang, don't you know what kind of people Zhu Yun and I are? You are just controlled by Qiu Linjian." "I." Sun Qiniang opened her mouth, but couldn't say anything. But at this time, the entire immortal emperor realm suddenly shook, and streams of immortal power surged from under his feet. Then, various laws of power also appeared in the air. For a moment, the wind and clouds changed color, and there were wailing sounds from afar. Obviously, the immortal soldiers and generals who originally belonged to the immortal emperor realm could not resist this sudden change. What's going on? Zhu Yun was shocked and subconsciously used the divine eye technique. When he saw all the laws and immortal power entangled together and gradually formed a human-shaped outline, his face changed drastically, and a bad idea came to his mind. Then, A strange voice uttered 3 words from the mouth of the human-shaped outline. Chaos Lotus. The next moment, lotus flowers appeared out of thin air. Sun Qinyang's body suddenly burst into a blazing phoenix fire, forming a wall of fire, blocking Zuyun and Mengwei. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1942. Shua. Almost at the same time, all the lotuses exploded, and the gray-white petals turned into sharp blades, shooting toward the wall of fire. Like Wan Po Tianzuan Jian Chao Zone, he came directly towards Zuyun. Zuyun, Wei, you go quickly. Sun Qinyang's voice came from the sea of fire. But Zuyun's divine eyes saw that Sun Qinyang's body was riddled with holes with sharp blades. Tongtian Immortal Lord. Zuyun's eyes were about to burst. How could he not recognize who this person was? Ha ha ha, boy Zuyun, I didn't expect that you would be in the main realm. You can get here, it takes no effort at all. The outline of the entangled law and immortal power gradually took shape, condensing into an immortal body. A middle-aged man with a majestic face, but there was a little joking in his eyes. Tongtian Immortal Lord, I have no intention of being your enemy, put away your magical powers. Zuyun was worried about Sun Qinyang and shouted coldly. An enemy? Are you an enemy of me? Are you worthy? Immortal Lord Tongtian spoke calmly, then turned his hands into palms and pressed towards Zuyun. From what Zuyun could see, it was like a 5-fingered mountain descending from the sky, seeming to suppress him here. Whether it's worthy or not, you'll know after you try it. Zuyun immediately knew that Immortal Lord Tongtian would not be affected by his words, so he immediately took the immortal mirror with both hands and lifted it up suddenly. The laws of time and space. The palm force was downward, and the huge fairy power that seemed to crush the entire fairyland suddenly disappeared without a trace. This is what Zuyun used, the Chaos Forbidden Zone, forming a vacuum, making the attacks of Lord Tongtian ineffective. Immediately afterwards, Mengwei also held the magic knife in his hand and shouted, "Cut!" She raised the knife and lowered it. The magic knife had grown longer and slashed towards the immortal Lord Tongtian. At the same time, Sun Qinyang's wall of fire was cut in half, revealing her delicate body. Zuyun's heart twitched suddenly because he could still hear the unconscious whisper in Sun Qinyang's mouth. I wish Yun, Wei, go quickly. Immortal Lord Tongtian couldn't help but be shocked when he found that his palm didn't work. He dodged Mengwei's magic knife and shouted in shock, you actually mastered the laws of time and space. Is it weird? Zuyun sneered, took off the glazed fairy mirror, and said, Immortal Lord Tongtian, I said, I have no intention of being your enemy, but it doesn't mean that I am afraid of you. It's very strange, Immortal Master Tongtian said expressionlessly, I spent a lot of time deliberately confusing the terms you as space and universe as time. Logically speaking, no one can integrate these two laws. It turns out to be you. Zuyun suddenly realized it and smelled a hint of conspiracy. Immortal Lord Tongtian. I'm afraid that I'm not just here to seek revenge, but there may be a bigger conspiracy. Could it be what Qiu Linjian said was the way to go to the upper world? Assume that Qiu Linjian's statement that he wants to turn the Tongtian immortal realm into the Tongtian demon realm is true. So could it be that Immortal Lord Tongtian also wants to use the entire immortal world to finally open a passage to the upper world? If this is true, it seems that this Immortal Lord Tongtian is the biggest mastermind behind the fairy world. As for Ye Yang, he might have had a fight with the Immortal Lord Tongtian for some reason at that time. Even Zuyun guessed it. Going forward must also be related to the laws of time and space. Looking back on my own Liuli immortal realm, wasn't it because I completely integrated the laws of time and space that it truly became the beginning of the immortal realm? Zuyun, at this time, the Tongtian Immortal Master said again, in the Tongtian immortal realm, there can only be one person who can go to the upper realm, and that is me. After that, he turned his hand over again, and another chaos lotus suddenly appeared in his hand. At the same time, countless lotus flowers bloomed in this world. Zuyun was caught off guard earlier and asked Sun Qinyang to desperately block the blow. He did not dare to neglect and quickly asked Meng Wei to retreat to his side. Unexpectedly, this time, the immortal Lord Tongtian did not respond to them, but the petals of the chaos lotus spread towards the entire fairyland. As soon as the screams started, immortal Lord Tongtian threw out the chaos lotus in his hand. After falling off from the palm, the chaos lotus took root in the ground and grew rapidly. Under the divine eye technique, Zuyun saw endless flesh and blood essence and vitality flowing into the chaos lotus. This is. Zuyun can see with his divine eyes, and Meng Wei can naturally see with his magic eyes. They all knew that this chaos lotus was devouring everything from the immortals in the entire fairyland. You also have chaos lotus, why not try throwing your chaos lotus out? Immortal Lord Tongtian looked at Zuyun with great interest. So you know everything. Zuyun said coldly that almost all the immortals in the fairyland must be dead, and there was no need for him to save them. Not to mention that Zuyun didn't have the energy to save him. Of course, there is nothing in this fairy world that I don't know about. Immortal Lord Tongtian was sure of Zuyun. Even if he understood the laws of time and space, he wouldn't take it too seriously. Perhaps after some time, Zuyun will know the magical effects of the law of time and space, and that will be a big problem. Zuyun sneered and said, "Then tell me, where does my chaos lotus come from?" Immortal Lord Tongtian was stunned, as if he really hasn't thought about this problem. Zuyun is from the Tongtian immortal realm, but where did his chaos lotus come from? No matter where it comes from, Tongtian immortal lord also came back to his senses after a moment, and said, "Anyway, you will die here today." He didn't care. As long as his chaos lotus is strong enough, then he will have the opportunity to go to the upper world through the chaos lotus. This news can be said to be the only one in the entire fairy world who knows it. It's not that easy to want me to die. Zuyun's tone was not small, in fact, there was a bit of bluffing. The main purpose was to test the strength of Tongtian immortal lord. If he really couldn't beat him, the worst thing would be to escape back to the Liulai immortal world. Could it be that he would die in his hands? It's just Sun Qinyang. Zuyun glanced at Sun Qinyang with the corner of his eye, but found that Sun Qinyang seemed a little different. At this time, Tongtian immortal lord made another move. Chaos Lotus. He raised his hand, and the chaos lotus that fell to the ground and grew flew out a petal, pointing directly at Zuyun. Demon Knife. Meng Wei also shouted, his eyes glowed red, and he stabbed at the lotus petal. Humph. Tongtian immortal lord snorted coldly, strode forward, and suddenly a law appeared in his hand. It turned out to be the law of chaos. Die. The three words, like the sound of an ancient bell, echoed in this fairyland, shocking Zuyun's mind. In the Liulai fairyland, those demon stars were also affected, shaking one after another, like a collapse of the earth. Zuyun also suddenly felt dizzy, but saw the flames rise again. Reborn from the fire. It was Sun Qinyang. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1943. Endless flames soared into the sky, burning towards the power of law in the hands of immortal Lord Tongtian. Immediately afterwards, in the sea of fire, the delicate figure disappeared, replaced by a huge phoenix. It's still Sun Qinyang, but she has a phoenix body. The feathers on the phoenix body are made up of streaks of phoenix fire. And on the phoenix claw, it was holding onto the sycamore tree. Jiang. Huangming. The flames of the sycamore trees contained a lot of sword energy. Hidden in the phoenix fire, it attacked the forehead of the Tongtian immortal lord. Humph. My divine beasts from the heavenly immortal realm are not comparable to those from outside like you. Immortal Lord Tongtian did not stop the movement of his hand, but stretched out his hand, and a grey-white light door suddenly appeared behind him. A fierce shout came from the light door. Zuyun was shocked. Suzaku. The vermilion bird flame, deeper and darker than the phoenix fire, surged out from it and burned towards Sun Qiniang. In an instant, two flames were entangled together. The immortal Lord Tongtian can actually control the four divine beasts? Zuyun was shocked. This was something he didn't expect at all. Zuyun, Wia, run quickly, run quickly. Sun Qiniang's voice came again, but she still did not stop her attack on the Tongtian immortal lord, and actually allowed the Suzaku fire to gain the upper hand. Wish Yun. Meng Wei used his magic sword to stab the immortal Lord Tongtian, but he still urged Zuyun to make a decision quickly. It's war. Better go. Zuyun gritted his teeth and said, if we leave now, not only Qiniang will die here, but I'm afraid we will never have the chance to kill immortal Lord Tongtian. After that, he followed the magic knife up and punched it. Chaos Immortal Fist. Endless chaotic power surged out of the fist, forming an even bigger fist. In the Tongtian immortal realm, Zuyun, you will not be my opponent. Immortal Lord Tongtian was disdainful and smacked it with a palm, instantly dispersing Zuyun's fist. Then he turned his fist into a claw and grabbed Zuyun's fist. The secret of immortality. Zuyun's figure flashed with dexterity. This technique originated from the mortal world. He has already become proficient in it and has almost formed the instinct of his body. He almost slid past immortal Lord Tongtian's body, turned his fist into a palm, and slashed towards immortal Lord Tongtian's neck. Suan Wu. Immortal Lord Tongtian uttered two words lightly, and a huge turtle head suddenly stuck out from the light gate, opening its mouth to bite Zuyun. But after Zuyun guessed that the opponent could control the four divine beasts, he would naturally not be so reckless. This attack was just a feint. Prick. He clenched his palm into a fist again, stretched out only one middle finger, and while drawing the symbol of thorn, he stabbed towards the center of the eyebrows of the Tongtian immortal lord. The erratic fingers made Suanwu turtle head elusive. After his mouth failed, Zuyun's fingers had already pierced the opponent's eyebrows. And the tattoo characters also took shape, and with the power of Chaos Immortal as the silence, they turned into sharp thorns, protecting Zuyun's middle finger and stabbing it. Suanwu. Immortal Lord Tongtian drinks again. Suanwu's body jumped out from the light gate, so fast that he could barely stand in front of him. Clang. There was a crisp sound, like gold and iron clashing. Zuyun's fingers and heavenly talismans were all blocked by the basalt tortoise shell. His body was shaken, and immortal Lord Tongtian also uttered two more words. White tiger. The tiger roared, and the white tiger jumped out from the light door and rushed towards Zuyun. Wish Yun, be careful. Meng Wei shouted in shock, and the magic knife quickly slashed at the white tiger to rescue Zuyun. But no one thought that the target of immortal Lord Tongtian was Meng Wei. Meng Wei possesses a demonic eye and controls the power of the Chaos Immortal. The immortal way that reaches the heaven and the immortal realm cannot suppress him. Azure Dragon. The last divine beast was ready to emerge, rushing towards Meng Wei like a spiritual snake emerging from its cave. Meng Wei still had his old strength, and he tried his best to help Zuyun again. Faced with Qinglong who wanted to bind him, he couldn't escape at all. Her face suddenly turned pale. But also at this time, a deep voice sounded. Ha ha ha, Qinglong. Let me try this real dragon. Dragon King. In the middle of the battle, a crack suddenly appeared, and the Dragon King's body also appeared from it. In the blink of an eye, it was entangled with the Qinglong, rolling like a hemp rope. Immortal Master Tongtian frowned. Baihu was delayed by Meng Wei's decisive sword attack, allowing Zuyun to dodge. His heart moved and he took a different approach. Suanwu. Baihu and Zuyun had just stabilized their bodies. I guess Zhu Yun's attention would be on Bai Hu. He took Xuanwu by surprise. The next moment, Xuanwu's turtle head suddenly popped out and bit Zhu Yun's back. Don't even think about it. Suddenly, fire reappeared in the crack. A giant beast that Zhu Yun had never seen before jumped out. It was shaped like a tiger, covered with pimple-like scales, but like a red bird, it was surrounded by flames. Kylan, you are just like the master, why don't you pretend to be asleep? The Dragon King, who was entangled with Qinglong, cursed loudly. If you sleep any longer, you won't have a chance to wake up. Kylan responded with a roar, and slapped the turtle's head with its giant claws filled with flames. Xuanwu felt a terrifying force and quickly retracted the turtle's head into its shell. White Tiger. Immortal Lord Tongtian also didn't expect that after the Dragon King and Sun Qiniang, there would be a divine beast. He clearly felt that the Kylan had Ye Yang's aura. It was obviously Ye Yang's pet, not the Tongtian Immortal Dao. Fortunately, the white tiger was ready again. At his command, it pounced on Zhu Yun again. Tongtian Immortal Lord, you may have forgotten me, right? The Phoenix King flew out of the crack, like Sun Qiniang, and grabbed it with endless flames. Phoenix, real dragon, Kylan. The four beasts faced the four elephant beasts, and a stalemate was formed. Sun Qiniang was also very smart. When she saw this, she put away her decision to fight to the death, and turned to take back the fire and fight with Suzaku. She was weaker than the Phoenix King, but with the help of Wutong, she was a destiny person, and she had the Wuji sword art. With all these added together, she could actually fight Suzaku on equal terms. Seeing this, Zhu Yun would not hold back, and immediately asked Meng Wei to follow him to kill Tongtian Immortal Lord. The face of Tongtian Immortal Lord was pale. The Chaos Lotus had not yet completely devoured the creatures in this fairy land. If Zhu Yun and Meng Wei joined forces, it might not be so easy to deal with. And he also felt the breath of Ye Yang and Qiu Linjian. While thinking in his heart, a hammer also flew out from the crack. Damn it, take my hammer. Ye Yang, as expected, came. The huge chaos hammer smashed down on the head of Tongtian Immortal Lord. Zhu Yun was overjoyed, but seeing that Ye Yang's clothes were in disarray, he couldn't help but feel strange. But this time, it was the best opportunity he had expected. How could he care about Ye Yang's clothes? The hammer fell on his head, and Zhu Yun did not hesitate to hold the fairy mirror in his hand and whispered, "Chaos Forbidden Zone." Before, he used this fairy art, just shouting the law of time and space, because he was afraid that it would remind Tongtian Immortal Lord. Keep this name and shout it out at the last moment, so as to exert the maximum power of the Chaos Forbidden Zone. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1944. Feeling the extremely terrifying aura, he was even more horrified than before when his inexplicable immortal power and laws disappeared. Zhu Yun actually dared to hide his clumsiness even when he was completely at a disadvantage. This character. If he were allowed to stay a while longer, he might go to Mayanbei Fairy Kingdom to block him. Fortunately, I also have a backup plan. You two, why don't you get over here? After the words fell, two immortal lord breaths came out from the light gate. Dongfang defeated Zimenyu and Qing. I saw that these two people looked confused, just because they did not know the immortal Lord Tongtian. But the next moment, he looked at Zhu Yun and saw the four mythical beasts, the dragon and phoenix tribes and the unicorn fighting together. How could he still not know what was going on? At the same time, they felt an endless shock of the immortal soul from the Tongtian Immortal Lord. Immortal Lord. They recognized it. This is the real fairy master. The situation at this time left them with no time to think about Xian Wuxing. Coupled with all the hatred towards Zuyun, the two immortal emperors immediately came forward to greet him. "Boy Zuyun, suffer death." Zuyun's face changed drastically. He was trying his best to control the chaos-restricted area, thus trapping the Tongtian immortal lord and letting Ye Yang hammer him to death, solving this problem in one fell swoop. But he didn't expect that the immortal Lord Tongtian would actually call the two immortal emperors out of their respective immortal domains. The two immortal emperors used their full strength to control their respective laws. They blasted at Ye Yang and Zuyun respectively. Has Ye Yang ever seen such a scene? The hammer that hit immortal Lord Tongtian immediately missed. He hurriedly took back the hammer and turned to hit Dongfang Bai. "Ha ha ha, Ye Yang, you are a loser and you want to fight with me." Dongfang Bai laughed wildly. In the past, he only knew that Ye Yang could penetrate the sky and the earth with a hammer. Now when he saw his reaction, he knew that it was a false reputation and not something to be afraid of. "What if you add me?" Qiu Linjian. 9 foxtails jumped out from the cracks and immediately entangled Dongfang Bai. "Brother Yang, smash him to death." Qiu Linjian gave a sweet shout, but his figure was not revealed and was always hidden in the cracks. Ye Yang suddenly came to his senses, and the hammer crashed down from Dongfang Bai's head. Bang! With this hammer, the immortal soul dissipated and the immortal body was annihilated. The majestic immortal emperor couldn't even withstand Ye Yang's blow. It is conceivable that Ye Yang is very strong. But as he said, Ye Yang's experience is not rich enough. "Ye Yang!" Immortal Lord Tongtian shouted angrily. He didn't expect Dongfang to be defeated so badly. He took 2 steps back and quickly stood behind Chaos Lotus. "Suck it for me." He grabbed the main stem of the Chaos Lotus with one hand and bent it slightly towards the east where he died. The collapsing power actually came straight towards the Chaos Lotus, but in just one breath, the aura of the Tongtian Immortal Lord increased greatly. No, he is using the Chaos Lotus to absorb the immortal power and improve his strength. Zuyun immediately realized something was wrong, punched Xianxia and Qing away, and quickly reminded him. "I know." Ye Yang's eyes were red. He might have killed an immortal emperor, which greatly boosted his confidence. After swearing loudly, Ye Yang rushed towards the immortal Lord Tongtian with a hammer. Chaos Lotus. Immortal Lord Tongtian flashed past, shouting at the same time. The Chaos Lotus actually turned its head on its own, a cold light flashed over the lotus, and it pierced Ye Yang's chest. "Ye Yang, be careful." Zuyun couldn't care less about Xianxia attack again. He stretched out his hand to cast a spell. Time and space stand still. Zuyun actually used immortal magic on Chaos Lotus. But at this time, if the Chaos Lotus is not restricted, Ye Yang may be sucked to death by the Chaos Lotus. He knows the horror of Chaos Lotus. Moreover, immortal Lord Tongtian's Chaos Lotus may be much stronger than his Chaos Lotus. Young boy Zuyun is so brave. You actually used the laws of time and space to stop me, Chaos Lotus. Immortal Lord Tongtian's expression flickered, and a flash of sarcasm flashed in his eyes. What did this boy think? He thought that this was a law within the Tongtian immortal realm. Could it still trap the supreme Chaos Lotus in the Tongtian immortal realm? But with this thought, immortal Lord Tongtian's expression suddenly changed. He suddenly discovered that the Chaos Lotus was continuously providing him with chaos immortal power, but at this time, it felt a little sluggish. How is this possible? Zuyun also keenly discovered the problem. My attention has always been on immortal Lord Tongtian, and I want to kill him. But if so, facing Chaos Lotus. This is tantamount to cutting off the retreat of Tongtian Immortal Lord. If there is no source of immortal power, he, the Tongtian Immortal Lord, is just an ordinary immortal lord. Zuyun stepped on the secret of immortality and nimbly dodged Xianxia and Qing. Then he held the glazed fairy mirror in one hand and used the mirror as a knife to slash at the root of the Chaos Lotus. He remembered what his Chaos Lotus had told him, cutting off his roots and almost destroying the Liuli immortal world. In the end, if it hadn't been for the Immortal Mountain, the consequences would have been disastrous, and the glazed immortal world wouldn't even have existed at all. I wish you the best. The Tongtian Immortal Lord flashed and stood in front of the Chaos Lotus. At the same time, extremely terrifying Chaos Immortal power erupted from his body, forming a wall of immortal power. At the same time, he also moved his palms forward, and condensed two huge immortal power palms, intending to catch Zuyun alive. But Zuyun smiled contemptuously. The next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared. Chaos Escape Technique. This place is full of chaos immortal power, which is just right for Zuyun to use this escape technique. His figure disappeared, Ximan Yuanking's attack missed, but Zuyun had already crossed the chaos immortal wall, stretched out his hand as a knife, and slashed at the Chaos Lotus. Looking for death. Tongtian Immortal Lord hurriedly turned halfway around. He didn't have time to condense chaos immortal power, so he took advantage of the momentum and swung his hand towards Zuyun. Bang! Zuyun used the glazed immortal mirror as an escape technique to block Tongtian Immortal Lord's attack, and then he chopped his hand hard at the bottom of the Chaos Lotus. Boom! With a loud bang, the roots and stems broke where the hand fell, and countless condensed chaos immortal powers burst out in an instant, not only blowing Zuyun away, but also all the people and beasts fighting here were affected, including Tongtian Immortal Lord. What's even more tragic is that this fairy mirror also exploded. In the Void universe, fire bloomed, like a world star that had run out of life and annihilated, leaving only dust. But no matter whether it was the Divine Beast, Mengwei, and Zuyun, or even Tongtian Immortal Lord and Ximan Yuanqing, they did not suffer any substantial damage. And the Chaos Lotus, like a rootless duckweed, floated in the dark universe. Chaos Lotus. Tongtian Immortal Lord was so anxious that he hurriedly flew towards the Chaos Lotus. But his speed was not as fast as Zuyun. Chaos Escape Technique. Zuyun's eyes flashed. How fast was he? Faster than Tongtian Immortal Lord. He rushed to Tongtian Immortal Lord and threw the rootless Chaos Lotus into the glazed immortal mirror, and then turned around and punched Tongtian Immortal Lord. Wei, help me! With a low roar, Mengwei's magic knife had already arrived, pointing directly at Tongtian Immortal Lord's back. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1945. Which, seek death. Immortal Lord Tongtian's body was suddenly flooded with chaos immortal power, forming a shield. He felt that the magic sword was threatening him, and it was very likely that it would stab him in the back. Whether it is the demonic energy above or the chaotic fairy power originating from the yin and yang chaos circle, it cannot be stopped by the immortal body of the Tongtian Immortal Lord. Clang! The chaos shield appeared, and Mengwei's magic sword came with a crash. With the sound of gold and iron clashing, Mengwei's hand shook violently. Immortal Lord Tongtian was not having an easy time. The demonic energy and chaotic fairy power above did not hurt him, but the power of the shock also caused his fairy power to surge. But he had no time to care, but flew away to seize the Chaos Lotus. Chaos Lotus was the foundation for his control over the entire immortal world, but it was cut off by Zuyun. Immortal Lord Tongtian, it's too late. Zuyun roared angrily and stood up, the glazed fairy mirror in his hand, facing it from behind. A strong suction force came out, and the rootless Chaos Lotus was immediately sucked into it. No. Immortal Lord Tongtian's eyes were about to burst, and he was so angry that he stretched out his palm and smacked Zuyun. How could he not see that the power of space laws gushed out from the opposite side of the glazed mirror? It was obviously Zuyun who had thrown his Chaos Lotus somewhere. That boundless momentum surged up, as if the entire fairyland was gathering towards him. Zuyun's expression tightened, and he slapped his backhand with one palm. Bang! The two palms intersect, and both are filled with chaos immortal power. The aftermath of two gray-white lights rippled out and swept away. Boom! 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 Not far away, those fairy lands were shattered into pieces. The divine beast, which was barely able to stand up, was once again thrown away. Zuyun, let me help you. Yang's voice suddenly came over, and Zuyun's immortal consciousness moved, and he discovered that Yang turned into a hammer and fell into Zuyun's hand. Chaos Hammer. These three words immediately appeared in Zuyun's mind. Since it is named after chaos, then I will use the immortal power of chaos to control it. We will definitely complement each other. Yang also knew that based on his experience, it would not be so easy to join forces with Zuyun to deal with it at the same time. This fairy hammer could greatly enhance Zuyun's strength. Master Tongtian Immortal, suffer death. At this time, Zuyun's body's energy and blood were surging, and the immortal soul was shaking in his head. He had no time to care about what would happen to Liulai Immortal Mansion, so he held up the Chaos Hammer to greet him. At the same time, Mengwei also cheated. The magic sword is every inch longer and every inch stronger. But facing a powerful enemy like Lord Tongtian, the longer the magic sword would limit her performance. Zuyun, come quickly. Mengwei drank sweetly, his figure flashed past, his eyes glowed with red light, he quickly approached the side of the Tongtian Immortal Lord, and pierced his waist with a knife. Zuyun used the Chaos Escape technique again and appeared from the other side of the Tongtian Immortal Lord. He raised the Chaos Hammer and smashed it down on his head. Death, I want you all to die. The eyes of the Tongtian Immortal Master were red, more penetrating than Mengwei who had the demon eyes. He slapped Mengwei's magic knife with one hand, and slapped the Chaos Hammer upward with the other hand. Bang! Bang! His whole body was wrapped in the power of Chaos Immortal, and with 1 against 2, he actually knocked Zuyun and Mengwei away. The Chaos Lotus is gone, and there is no need for me to restrain myself anymore. Immortal Lord Tongtian had a cruel look in his eyes. From the beginning to the end, he never used his full strength. He just wanted the Chaos Lotus to absorb as much immortal flesh and blood as possible to strengthen itself. He even kept his eye on the 4 divine beasts Zuyun, Mengwei, and Dragon, Phoenix and Unicorn. If Chaos Lotus can absorb them, then Immortal Lord Tongtian believes that he can reach the upper world more easily. But I didn't expect it. Zuyun suddenly changed his target, cut off the Chaos Lotus, and even took the Chaos Lotus away. Destroy the path to immortality. Immortal Lord Tongtian had no scruples and tried his best. Even if Zuyun and Yang joined forces, they were defeated steadily. When Mengwei couldn't even get close, he was entangled by Ximen Yuanqing. Immortal Lord, I'm here to help you. Ximen Yuanqing had wanted to run away for a long time. Unexpectedly, Immortal Lord Tongtian would burst out with such strong strength, and he immediately took the initiative to meet Mengwei like a grass on the wall. But this act of loyalty did not receive a response from Lord Tongtian Immortal. Ximen Yuanqing had a hot face but a cold butt, but he had no self-awareness at all and clung to Mengwei. The 4 mythical beasts and the dragon, phoenix, and unicorn also fought together again. The more they fought, the farther they went, leaving all the space here to Zuyun and Immortal Lord Tongtian. Zuyun, what should I do? This hammer can't hit him. Yang was extremely anxious and had no idea at all. If you can't hit it, you can't hit it. We just look for opportunities. Zuyun was much calmer. The opponent's momentum is strong, and it would not be a wise move to choose a head-on confrontation. He used the Chaos Escape technique to continuously dodge the power of the Tongtian Immortal Lord, with 10 moves, 100 moves, and 1,000 moves. Zuyun responded fluently, just like when he was in the lower realm, he was constantly dodging the pursuit of monks who were higher than him. Yang, he doesn't have the Chaos Immortal power provided by Chaos Lotus. He will always run out of power. The Chaos Hammer kept trembling in his hand, and Zuyun felt helpless and had no choice but to comfort Yang. Yang said, "What about you? He is the Immortal Master after all, so he can't possibly be exhausted before you, right?" Zuyun smiled contemptuously. He had the glazed Immortal Realm. Even if he was weaker than the other party, he would not be so easily exhausted of his immortal power. Moreover, he was just dodging, which consumed very little chaotic immortal power. Don't worry. What we lack the least now is time. Let's see. Zimenyu and Qing and Menghui were also getting farther and farther away from each other, and so were the other divine beasts. Zuyun certainly had plenty of time to fight with the immortal Lord Tongtian. He could even see that the longer the time dragged on, the more beneficial it would be for him. If there were more immortals coming, they would definitely be his helpers. Even if there were none. As time went on, his glazed immortal realm would slowly allow the entire Chaos Star Demon clan to integrate into it, and then provide the origin of the immortal realm, and finally transform it into chaotic immortal power for him to use. How could he not win when one side grew stronger and the other weaker? Zuyun was full of confidence, and it was even easier for him to deal with it. The immortal Lord Tongtian was getting more and more impatient after failing to attack for a long time. But at the same time, he also began to slowly think about the current situation. Zuyun, this kid, obviously has that mysterious escape technique, but he just dodges instead of running. Is he plotting against me? Impossible, he has just become an immortal king. Even if he has the Chaos Hammer, he can't be my opponent. Although the Chaos Hammer is mysterious, I won't be hit directly on my immortal body, so I'm fine. Could it be, he wants to rely on his Chaos Lotus? Xian Wuzong told him that Zuyun has a Chaos Lotus. However, the Chaos Lotus is still in his body. Tongtian Immortal Lord has also gone through such a stage. He thinks he can deal with it, but he doesn't know that Zuyun's Chaos Lotus has already turned into chaos in the Liuli Immortal Realm. But Zuyun overlooked one thing. The reverse space of the Liuli Immortal Mirror is actually the chaos in the Liuli Immortal Realm now.